Hi, I'm Captain Tracy Urena, a Public Affairs Officer for Maryland Wing and the host of the syndicated radio program, Civil Air Patrol Today. I'd like to share with you our experience with getting the Civil Air Patrol message out into the mass media market. Now, a little bit of background about myself. I've been in the Civil Air Patrol for 3 years. Started off as a parent. My son started off as a cadet at 12 years old and quickly fell in love with the program and everything that Civil Air Patrol stood for. So I joined at the local level as a public affairs officer. And it didn't take me long to realize that one of the problems that we have at Civil Air Patrol, especially as a public affairs officer, is getting the word out there about who Civil Air Patrol is and what it is that we do. And I was very fortunate that I was approached by the local radio station to be interviewed about that very topic. Now, I came into the radio station. I had no background in radio whatsoever. Never been to a radio station. Was scared to death, to be honest with you. Came in, sat down, was interviewed for 30 minutes about who we are, what is our mission, what is it that we do, and what are we hoping to accomplish. And by the end of the 30 minutes, got most of the information out there that I really wanted to get out there. But I realized there was so much more that could be put out into the public. So went back, talked to my squadron commander, and we decided to put together a Civil Air Patrol Today show. Now, we were very fortunate there had been one in previous years, and so I had a kind of a template to work from. But what I want to do today is talk to you about what it is that you can do, both from a squadron or a group or wing level, to get the Civil Air Patrol message out there to your market. How do you do that? How do you utilize radio or podcast to get that message out there? So for the next 30 minutes, that's what we're going to be talking about. What is the reality of free broadcast airtime? After the Telecom Act, radio and TV stations are no longer required to do PSAs. But what they are required to do is long-form community discussion programs discussing the needs of the community. So what does that mean? Some examples of that would be youth programs, homeland defense, and even education. In our wing, we've used this requirement to get a 30-minute program on 7 area radio stations. And we use this program for recruiting and aerospace education outreach. Now, while our program is recorded in one of the affiliate radio stations, the equipment necessary to produce a radio quality show is very easy to purchase. And, by the way, don't be intimidated and think that you need a special engineer to do this. I'm sitting right now in the studio of one of our affiliate radio stations, and the equipment is very easy to learn how to use. Every radio station is basically set up the same way. We've got the board. On the left-hand side of the board are usually the microphones. Usually there's multiple microphones. There's the one that you'll use as the main host, and then there's usually a second and third microphone for if you want to have some sort of a guest in studio with you. Now, in the middle part of the board, you'll see this is where all the music type things happen. So if you CD, tape player, iPod, anything like that that you would pull music from, the middle part of the board is for that. On the right-hand side of the board are all kind of the extras, the things that you might use in your show, but that you might not use all the time. So something that would be important on the right side of the board would be the telephone. Basically, what you do is with any of the boards, you push the button, that would turn it on, and then you use a slider up and down to adjust the volume. That's true for both the microphone in addition to the telephone. See how easy it is just to work a board? You don't need a special license or special knowledge to do it. So now that you know that using mass media is one avenue as a public affairs officer you can use to get the Civil Air Patrol message out there, it's time to kind of talk about what it is that would be involved in your show. Now, there's some things that are just kind of specific for any radio program, whether it's for Civil Air Patrol or it's for anything in general. Kind of the requirements of the show. Now, first and foremost, you must have a person to do it, a host. Now, this can be a little bit tricky based on the politics of your squadron. Just because, for instance, your squadron commander might be the one in charge, might not make him or her the best person to be hosting the show. You need to find somebody that's really energetic, that's warm and welcoming, that's outgoing, that can really connect with your audience. There's nothing worse than talking to somebody or listening to somebody on the air when they're just very dull and very boring. It doesn't interest you in the information at all. So that's first and foremost. And so don't be afraid to look outside of just your command. Think about a cadet, maybe one of the parents, somebody that you know that really would reach out and make a difference. Once you've found your host, something else that you need for your show is you need an opening and a close. And what that means in radio jargon, that basically means the opening of the show. What is your show? Who is your show? What is it about? Some sort of information that when somebody first tunes in, if they know nothing about what they're about to listen to, it kind of explains or kind of talks about what it is. That's called the opening. Now, the close can be a little bit different. Close might include information about how they get your information, whether it's your website or your Facebook page, YouTube video, or even send them over to the national website to get more information. Now, one of the things that we do for our show for Civil Air Patrol today is we have an opening, and then we use one of the Civil Air Patrol commercials as the close. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but Civil Air Patrol actually has 3 different radio PSAs already made and sound amazing. Now, I'm going to play those for you right now.
Get off the couch and prepare for your future. If you're a young adult between 12 and 18 and you're dreaming of a career in aviation, space, or the military, then you need to know more about the cadet program of Civil Air Patrol, the official auxiliary of the United States Air Force. Fly, learn to lead, hike, camp, get in shape, and push yourself to new limits. Moms and dads, there is no future military requirement, but you and your young adult can find out more right now. Just log on to GoCivilAirPatrol.com. From border to border, from sea to shining sea, more than 61,000 ordinary American citizens are serving their communities every day as a member of the Civil Air Patrol, the official auxiliary of the United States Air Force. From disasters large and small, natural and man-made, we answer the call to serve. To find out more information or to find a unit near you, log on now. GoCivilAirPatrol.com. Since 1941, ordinary American citizens have been serving their communities nationwide as a member of the Civil Air Patrol, the official auxiliary of the United States Air Force. Answering the call to volunteer nationwide with 1,500 squadrons across 52 wings and our pilots flying more than 112,000 hours annually. And you can answer the call to volunteer. Become an everyday hero every day as a member of the Civil Air Patrol. Find a unit near you at GoCivilAirPatrol.com.
So as you can hear, National has already completed some really amazing PSAs for us. Now for Civil Air Patrol today, the show that I host, we have an opening. We take the commercial and put a commercial usually in the middle of the show to kind of break it up a little bit since it is a half-hour show. And then we put another commercial at the end to end it up. Now I want to give you an example of what Civil Air Patrol today sounds like.
This is Civil Air Patrol Today, a public affairs presentation of the Maryland wing of the Civil Air Patrol, the official auxiliary of the United States Air Force. And now, here's your host, Captain Tracy Urena.
This is Captain Tracy Urena with Civil Air Patrol today, and I'm very excited to be at Camp Frederick in Reisterstown for the 17th annual Tri-Wing Encampment. Now, I'm very fortunate to be sitting here with Major Carmelo, who is the Commandant of the Cadets. Major Carmelo, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
So for people out there who are not familiar with encampment, some call it a boot camp. Do you feel that this is a type of boot camp?
In a manner of speaking, it's a basic training for Civil Air Patrol cadets. We follow a military model.
So that's just a snippet of Civil Air Patrol today. Now that's a half-hour show. You might not be able to find a radio station that's interested in a half-hour show, or you might not have enough content to do that. In order for it to be considered a public affairs show for the FCC, basically it needs to be at least 10 minutes long. So when you go to pitch or go to talk to radio stations or put together your show, in the back of your mind, kind of keep that number going. Between 10 and 15 minutes is a really good place to start. Now how do we figure out what kind of information you put out there? What kind of content? So now you're ready for your show, and it's time for you to prepare your content. How often is your show going to be? Is it going to be once a month, once every other week, once a week? That's important because you're going to want to schedule at least a month or two out. What are the topics you want to talk about, and who are going to be your guests? It's very important because what will end up happening is you're going to need to be doing a lot of research ahead of time so that you can be a good interviewer. Now, talk about locations. The beauty about this is that you can really do the interviews anywhere. You can do them, of course, in a radio studio, but I find it more fun to do it on location. You could do it in an airplane, for instance, while a cadet's doing an O-flight. You could do it at encampment, talking to both the cadets and the senior members as to what is going on. Make it a whole show, make it a couple of different shows. What about at meetings? If there's a special meeting that's happening, whether it's a promotion or it's an anniversary. What about at a SAR event? You got a search and rescue event going on, whether it's just a practice one or it's a real event. Interview the people that are in charge. What is going on with them? That type of thing. And then finally, any kind of a cadet event, whether you're going to do some sort of a site visit with them, they are on a search and rescue mission, something that just kind of grabs the audience's attention. All of those will fall into that public affairs category, which will make it so that the radio stations or your listeners are going to be very engaged in it. So, you figured out what you're going to be talking about for the next couple of weeks. You know who your guests are. And again, your guests could be anybody. Don't stay within just a chain of command. Think about those cadets. Think about the parents. Think about historians, people that have maybe retired or that were involved in Civil Air Patrol but aren't anymore. Think about the stories, because at the end of the day, it's the story that's going to grab your listener, and that's what's going to engage them. Now, I know for some people, getting in front of the mic and interviewing somebody can be a little nerve-wracking. So I've come up with some tips that I think are going to help you at least get started, at least get your mind in the right path as to setting up an interview. So number one, start slow, safe, and personal. There's nothing worse than sitting down with somebody, wanting to have a conversation with them, and they immediately hit you with a hard question. Again, you're not a Katie Couric. You're not in to find what the story is under the story. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get the Civil Air Patrol mission out to the public. So when you're working with your guests or your interviewees, start slow. Find out who they are. What is their background? How did they get involved with Civil Air Patrol? Why did they get involved with Civil Air Patrol? Number two, coax, don't hammer. If you want to ask a question and for some reason the person just doesn't want to answer it, sugar works so much better than sour. You're going to want to be nice and you're going to want to kind of coax it out of them. But if for some reason they're not interested in answering it or they're not going in the direction you want them to go, don't hammer it. There's nothing worse than having somebody who's interviewing you and they get real pushy. That'll put you off as an interviewee. It will also push away the audience, and that's not the image that we're trying to get across. Next thing, make sure the questions at least are open-ended. Now, you can have some questions such as, how long have you been in Civil Air Patrol? That's a closed-ended question. But once you get through some of those, it's really good to ask an open-ended question. Again, why did you join Civil Air Patrol? Why is it important for you to be part of encampment? What do you think the community thinks about the fact that you're out there doing search and rescue? Give open-ended questions because you'll be amazed by the kind of responses that you will get. Probably some of the responses are not going to be ones that you planned on, and that's what makes the actual radio show so much more exciting and engaging. Number four, ask what you don't know. Yes, you're going to know the background of Civil Air Patrol. We're public affairs officers. That's what we do. We're supposed to know this information. But ask some questions that you don't know. Because again, you might go down a road that you just weren't expecting. Whether it's something that you're not familiar with. For instance, if you don't do search and rescue, ask about what is involved in it. What kind of equipment do you need? Because these are questions that you have, and if you have the questions, I can guarantee you the public's going to have the same questions. Number five, let the interviewees actually wander a bit, but be very careful with this. What happens is when you're sitting there and you're talking to somebody, sometimes what happens is they come up with an idea that you never thought of. And so they start going down this road, which might be wonderful and make for great entertainment. But be careful because sometimes people have a tendency to go way off the track. And you have to be, your job as the interviewer is to pull them back in and keep them on topic. Again, you have a finite amount of time that you are able to have the information. And you don't want it to be rambling over stuff that really doesn't have anything to do with what the audience is actually wanting to listen to. Number six, don't send advanced questions. Now, I agree with this in the fact that you don't want everything to be cookie cutter. I did an interview one time where I did send some advanced questions, just a couple. And the gentleman came in literally with his answers typed up and sat there and read the answers on the air. You could tell he was reading. It made for a horrible interview. And my takeaway from that was, yes, it's good to prepare your guests. What I like to do is say, here are some topics that I think we might talk about. We might talk about your history with Civil Air Patrol. We might talk about what it is that Civil Air Patrol does for the community. I'll give them some ideas so they can get their mind thinking, but I won't tell them specific questions because, again, until I get their answer, my question might completely change, and you don't want to stump them. So don't always send advanced questions, but let them know what the topics might be. Number 7, be prepared. I'm telling you, it makes such a difference. Because what ends up happening is if you're having a conversation about, let's say, search and rescue, and you don't know anything about it at all, it's hard to ask good questions, and it's hard to sound knowledgeable if you don't know what you're talking about. That also applies to your speaker's background. Get a little bit of information about them ahead of time. Know who it is that you're talking to. It does make a big difference because, again, you want to come across as an expert. You also want to come across as friendly and warm and welcoming. And if you're really not sure who you're talking to, the audience will hear that in your voice. And I'm going to be honest with you, it'll make you a lot more stressed out. Number 8, very important, listen. Now, when I talk to people, my job as an interviewer is very simple. It is to give them a topic and let the speaker talk. Now, I'm listening the whole time, and I might ask a question just to kind of help the audience. I put myself in their shoes. What is it that if I'm listening to the show that I want to know? But the only way you can do a really good job of that is if you actually listen to what they're saying. Tune out everything around you. Don't have your cell phone on you. Don't be looking at a computer. Really focus on that person. Eye contact is so important because if you don't do that, then you will start to wander. And there's nothing worse than somebody who's talking, they finish talking, and then you realize, I don't even know what they just said. That goes to the next one, number 9, don't ask dumb questions. There are such things as dumb questions. And what I mean by that is if you're talking to a commander and he just got done telling you the number of planes that, the number of hours that the planes have been out there, or whatever the topic may be. And then you immediately turn around and say, by the way, how many hours do you have on the planes? It shows that you weren't listening. It shows that you're not a good interviewer. Your guest is going to be quite irritated with you. And as a show in itself, it's just going to come across very unprofessional. And finally, don't repeat what the interviewee says. You can always tell an interviewer who's not comfortable with their speaker if they sit there and the interviewee says, we just awarded a cadet the Spots Award. And then you say, that's wonderful that you just gave the cadet the Spots Award. It's obvious that you're not really thinking, you're just regurgitating what they're saying, and that's not good for a good interview. So again, the biggest takeaway that you need to have is just be prepared, be warm and welcoming, really engage the person you're talking to. It's okay to stutter, to have questions. You're not the expert. The speaker that you're talking to, they are the expert. But your job is to facilitate the interview, to facilitate what you think your audience is going to want to listen to. And in the back of your mind, as the public affairs officer, you need to remember that the main purpose is to get the Civil Air Patrol's message and mission out to the public in the best light possible. So, you've got your show together. You've got your schedule put together. You know who you're going to interview. Now what? What kind of equipment do you need? All right, so you're ready to get your show on the road. Now, some equipment that you're going to need to get started. You don't need to spend a lot of money. It's something that you can pick up at your local Staples or Office Depot. But something that's really going to be important for you is to have a handheld. Now, this is the handheld that I use. It's only $35 at Staples, and it's definitely radio quality. Basically, it has a power button, has a record button, a playback button. That's about it. That's all you really need. But what it does is it does a very good job. You can throw it in your purse, you can throw it in your bag, whatever you need, and you can have it on hand whenever you need to do a recording. Now, it does have a microphone on it already, so it can record directly. However, you're going to pick up other noises in addition. So if you just use this, make sure you are in a quiet place. So this probably wouldn't be as appropriate if you were in an airplane, for instance, or if you were in a big crowded room. Now, in those situations, what I like to use is I like to use a microphone. Now, I use a microphone from the radio station, but you can use a microphone from anywhere. Again, you can go to any kind of a store for it. Just a standard microphone, and again, it has an adapter right here at the end. Plug it right into the equipment, right into the microphone part. Now you have yourself a very professional system. This is what they use for Civil Air Patrol today. We also use this at the radio station. So, very easy. You can do your interview, you can go back and forth, and then the only thing that you're going to pick up is your actual speaker's voice and not any of the surround stuff. Again, makes it look professional, so if you do want to go out into events where the public is watching, it does give you an opportunity to do that. So, you have your equipment to do your interviews. Now, how do you get the equipment, or how do you get the information out of the handheld and into your computer? If you have any kind of a computer, whether it's a Mac or it's a PC, there are programs out there that are very easy to use. If you have a Mac, then you already have Garageband, which is a program that you can use to download the program from the handheld into your computer. If you don't have a Mac, if you have a PC, and for instance you have Photoshop, then you have access to Adobe Audition. But if you don't have that and you have a PC, then you can always go to Audacity, which is a free website that you can use online to edit and to do everything that you need to do to clean up your program. Whether it's edit things, rearrange them, change the volume, or put together the opening, the close, and the commercials. And again, that's Audacity, A-U-D-A-C-I-T-Y. So again, you don't need to spend a lot of money on equipment. You're really talking about, at a minimum, about $35, maybe $100 max. And it is something that you might want to talk to your squadron or your wing commanders about. It is a public affairs, definitely a go-to for equipment. So it's something that you're going to need anyway. As the public affairs officer for your local squadron, your wing, or your group, it's important that you are constantly looking for ways to get the Civil Air Patrol's message out to the public. You now have in your toolkit the ability to do a radio broadcast or a podcast. I want to thank you for spending some time with me. It's been a real pleasure. If you have any questions or would like more information about the Civil Air Patrol Today program or about how to set up your own podcast or radio broadcast, please feel free to email me at Tracy Urena, CAP@gmail.com. Now, let's open it up for questions.